All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on your place in the world or in the country. Thank you for joining us today. I am, as you can see on my screen, from Indianapolis. It's a little bit just before 4 o'clock. Our slated start time for today's webinar, Uncorking the Future of AI Governance with Tim Adair and Charles Potts. We'll wait just a minute or two to let people filter into the room. Looks like we have a pretty good attendance rate so far. We got people coming into the room, so we're happy to have you join us. Thank you for attending with us today. I'll get started with a few housekeeping items and then cover our agenda, and then we'll get started in earnest in just a minute here. Take myself off mute. Apologies there. Dealing with the sticky advance button. As you all are aware, this is the Uncork the Future of Governance event. Thank you again for joining us today. If you have received your sample of wine selections, please do feel free, if it's within your ability, to uncork your wine as we get started here. A couple things we're going to be covering today: the evolving role of bank boards, and specifically community bank boards, how innovation plays a role in that, and how community bank boards can take advantage of that with compliance and clarity. And then probably a very popular topic, or very notable topic, as the trends are advancing very quickly, how AI is shaping board governance. We'll also be sharing an exclusive sneak peek of some of the capabilities that we're developing here at OnBoard to answer some of those needs for community banks and other board-led organizations. And as always, we always entertain a live Q&A discussion. A couple of notes there. This is a Zoom webinar, so you are mute by default. However, we do really highly encourage your participation. So whether that's participating in the chat, if you have a comment, a piece of feedback, a question about a particular area we're discussing at the moment, please do chime in. I'll be monitoring both the chat and the Q&A. And we've reserved about 10 or 15 minutes towards the end of the webinar presentation here today to answer some of those questions live with our two speakers. Quick introduction. Again, here's your wine pairing list. This will be, we'll also share the slides on demand and in a follow-up email here. So if you have not yet opened your wine selection, you can use this pairing card later if you just decide to consume that later. But take a screenshot, if you will, here, if you want to start now. With that, today's speakers, my name is Josh Palmer. I'm the head of content and research for OnBoard. I do a lot of blogs, surveys, webinar presentations. My great pleasure to be here with you today. We're also joined by Tim Adair. He's the Chief Product Officer at OnBoard. Thanks for joining us, Tim. And of course, I'm sure many of you already know Charles Potts. We're just talking about his extensive travel history. He shows up at many national conferences and events, and I'm sure many people are aware of you already, Tim, or you, Charles, but you're obviously the EVP and CIO for ICBA. So welcome to the presentation, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having us.
Great. And I'll just get started here. This is a really big year for us. 2025 is really notable in that we've been a ICBA preferred service provider for the last 10 years. It's been what we hope is a very fruitful relationship on both sides. We do have a lot of great independent community bank customers within our customer portfolio. So we're thankful if you're already an OnBoard customer, or if you have not yet checked out OnBoard as a board governance solution, we do welcome you in doing so. So thank you, Charles, and everybody else at ICBA for a great relationship over the last 10 years.
Thank you, Josh.
Cool.
Let me just note, because I think for some of our listeners, I want to say something about a preferred service partnership. I mean, 10 years is pretty remarkable, but what's more remarkable is to point out to the viewers, this is a reflection of what our bankers think. This preferred service provider program is a direct reflection of our bankers highlighting the wonderful nature of this business, this company, and really empowering us as an association to develop this relationship. And so I just want to commend OnBoard and the team for doing such a wonderful job these years, and it being reflected in the voice of the bankers themselves. So thank you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. That's very, very touching. Okay, guess as we get started with the actual content of the program today, I will just kick it off with just the starting question for you, Charles. What are you hearing? You're literally across the country or at shows all day, every day. It sounds like by your travel history. What are you hearing about the evolving role of the board and the dynamic changes in the landscape we're seeing today?
Yeah, this is a very important question, and so it's very important foundationally to the reason why ICBA nearly 8 years ago really created this innovation pillar inside the organization and created a lot of the programmings that I am very blessed and have the pleasure to help lead. And to a large extent, it's because the nature of our business is getting more complicated, more complex. There's more foreign threats, if you will, from direct fintechs, from neobanks, from the larger banks. And this is putting more pressure on our community banks to make sure that clear strategy and clear governance is established really at the highest levels, at the board level, to ensure that the banks are meeting these needs in this ever more complicated world, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's the field of artificial intelligence as a class of services. And now we have the evolving crypto stablecoin world. This has, by its very nature, necessitated that banks evaluate and reevaluate the role of the board. So what we're seeing is really this need for boards to become a lot more knowledgeable in some of these more complex areas that continue to get more complex. I mean, let's face it, cybersecurity is not going to get less. Risk and compliance is not going to get less. There are only areas that are going to become more complicated and more challenging for community banks. So the boards are evolving to grow their own knowledge, grow their own expertise, grow some of their responsibility, and it puts more emphasis on making sure that board members and directors have the training, the resources, and really the tools to provide more skillful governance over the direction that these banks are pursuing.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting too, Charles. That I talk to a lot of board members and board professionals, and that what I find is that community banks especially have some of the longest serving board members. There's people who spent their entire career at the bank, maybe started at an entry level position and literally worked their way up to board service. Do you find that dynamic presents a unique challenge in that, or that?
Well, it does. It does on two facets. One is the bank's leadership and even their boards rethinking the board composition and rethinking the need to bring different views and different skills into the board. So we see a lot of boards that are in this evolutionary process, along with the embracing of an innovation-led strategy to help grow the bank, take advantage of market dynamics, address the evolving needs of their communities. And the second facet of that is the need for the board members to have more training, more tools, more capabilities to function more collaboratively in what is one of the most fast-paced, dynamic, innovative marketplaces we've seen in community banking in forever, in my career. And things are moving so much faster, and I think this necessitates boards being more agile and more knowledgeable about the challenges around them.
Yeah. And then specifically, I mean, with just thinking of AI capabilities, and I think one thing that many people don't acknowledge in the conversation about AI, there's been a number of AI technologies around for a while. So if your bank has a chat bot on its website, or if you're using a phone tree, that's some form or fashion of AI. But now it's a much more democratized, accessible tool with a lot of powerful compute capabilities. Where do you see those innovations in AI in just the last couple of years impacting banking governance or just banking outcomes?
Yeah, look, the beauty about AI and you guys are exemplifying, what I like to call responsible AI, and that is, can I augment, complement, offload redundant, historically labor intense practices and automate some of those functions? So AI tools, in an analytic fashion, can provide, better data, better insights, better governance and guidance. Those tools help banks in a more agile fashion and analyze what's going on. Then to the point of streamlining operational functions, compliance functions, so monitoring practices, allowing board members to really dig in better without having to brute force things, if you will. Historically, the paper chase has been one of those things that is clumsy and cumbersome. And so it automates more of those fashions and puts in the power of board members better insights. And then it goes into really the skillful assessments. I think it's important that as we see board governance practices are evolving to ensure that directors are being more routinely evaluated, and more insights are being gained about where expertise is needed and or missing as they're attempting to address these things. And ultimately, what this leads to is, historically, we've taken kind of a point in time and looked backwards and affirmed things that have happened. Now I can get into more modeling of behaviors and future states and look at my strategy and how, as a board member, I can evaluate potential future impacts. And the AI tools just give me more power to be more strategic in my thinking as a board member.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think is always really interesting too. Not only the ability to identify and maybe mitigate risk, but also unhidden or unknown opportunities that may be in your data or your analytics. That said, and I have a couple slides here, and I'll try to get my screen back up there. But like, Charles, what do you think is, especially from the community bank perspective, what is holding people or organizations back from really embracing and leveraging AI and to really achieve their business outcomes?
It starts with education. Education is everything. So there is a need for baseline and continuing education from the tops of the organization on down. And so this to this point, legacy mindsets, I think is an important framing of the need to explore what these tools, and they are tools, and we've discussed this before, what these tools can be used for and how you can responsibly use them. I think the education also then ties into some of this uncertainty. As I said earlier, risk and compliance practices are only getting more complicated for financial institutions. And so staying on top of that, staying hand in glove with your regulators, and ensuring that they're on this journey with you. And then ultimately, I like using the old quote from Alice in Wonderland when she meets the Cheshire Cat on her journey and asks which way she should go at the fork in the road. He says, "My dear Alice, any road will get you there if you don't know where you're going." Well, strategy has to inform what the financial institution is going to do with these tools, because these tools can be used in lots of different ways. So the value of these tools is critically important and needs to be understood in alignment, in concert with the direction and the strategy the financial institution and its board is pursuing.
That's great. And then Tim, I'll turn it over to you. Tim, I mean, I guess let's just start with the just the general pain points that we as an organization are trying to solve in the board governance landscape, or even maybe specifically community banks. Like, what are some of the real world challenges around board governance that still exists today and maybe have existed 5, 10, 15 years ago still?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, a lot of this is, we're covering this across many of our customers and verticals, but we know there's information overload. There's directors trying to absorb lots of complex detail, and it's time sensitive, so it's available today and have to prepare for tomorrow. So we know that that's an issue and something that we are trying to create some really powerful workflows around. And we know that those same directors, it could be inconsistent if they're able to prep, or if there are actions that need to be taken. The follow through is challenging. Those are complex things. And then as directors come and go, the institutional knowledge is harder to keep intact. And so that's a key piece that we're trying to figure out how we do that at scale. And all of this is to take the platform and layer on intelligent workflows to help connect the dots. So we'll talk more about that, but those are some of the challenges. I won't get into the solutions, but I think we've got some pretty good answers for some of the challenges that are coming up today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have a sneak peek of some of those core capabilities that we're developing. And I guess back to you, Charles. Innovation is in your title. It's part of your chief evangelist role. When we think about the idea of, like you mentioned, the learning curve or the steep integration technology hurdle that many of past technologies have forced banks to adopt. What does kind of a low friction integration or technology look like when you're introducing an AI or a technology like that into the boardroom?
Well, Tim touched on something I think that is critically important, and to your question, how can a board member consume vast amounts of information in a more timely fashion and gain some insights without literally having to just comb through reams and reams and reams of papers and spreadsheets and documents. And I think that for a board member is probably a baseline starting point, right? How can I get my hands around what, as we've said, over the last 15 or so minutes, the world's only getting more complicated for our community banks. So the amount of information they need to consume and analyze and understand is only going to get more onerous. So how can I boil the proverbial ocean and gain the insights I need as a board member to align with my role and responsibility from a governance perspective? I think that's where these tools create natural efficiencies in the operation of not only the board, but other practices throughout the organization. So you take a loan committee as a subset of that board, right? How can I get through this analysis? And I'm not, it's not a rush to judgment, but it is make my bank more efficient, right? Because if we're going to grow my financial institution, it's the proverbial fixed step cost business. I've got people that can only do so much in a given amount of time. Can I free them up to do more and be more productive? From the board on down, that's where these tools just shine.
Yeah, but also, and this might be the best moment for me to introduce my risk slides here. I think another important factor there is that these tools are so publicly accessible. They're so easy to integrate into, just a Chrome or an Edge browser away, that many people might not consider the risk of using a publicly accessible tool or their own personal subscription to a chat GPT or something similar if they're consuming or analyzing those board materials. So I won't read all of these, but obviously there are some risks that are involved with that, especially if you're uploading board sensitive information into a publicly accessible tool. To it, and this is just in the last 7 days of headlines alone, we found out that ChatGPT had a share feature. So if you had done a really cool analysis or something like that on a really proprietary piece of data, you could click the share link and ChatGPT would generate a link that you could share with a colleague or another person on your board. turns out that Google search was indexing those as just regular public content. So that was just widely available. I literally found quite a few interesting personal interactions using that before they patched that. And then just today, we get, you know, a new capability announced by ChatGPT. Oh, you can integrate your Google Mail and your Google Calendar now. But almost immediately, there's vulnerabilities in that. So that's just to underscore that this technology is moving so quickly that even the vulnerabilities aren't even identified until they're out in the market. So just for that much more sense of caution in the marketplace, especially with community banks.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. And we talk to banks all the time about the risk of using, you know, open source tools like that, and absolutely, you know, 100% that is a no-no on many levels. And look, the you know, you go back to the barrier to entry question earlier, and this is where the regulatory alignment and the examiner alignment is critical for the banks as they think about this. We oftentimes just think about it in kind of a customer facing, oh, in my lending activity, but we forget about it in things like these operational areas like board governance.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the next question, Charles, is do you have a great example? You don't have to name names, but are you seeing some community banks that are doing a really great job of kind of innovating, adapting, evolving to use these tools to get their success outcomes where they need to be?
Yeah, you know, look, and you guys have some great testimonials and use cases of our ICBA member banks, and I think if you were to, you know, take this world of community banks that you serve, and you do the proverbial Venn diagram intersection, I think if you look at the most common kind of testimonial use case, it's around this conversation about efficiency, increasing efficiencies, and how do I run board meetings more efficiently? How do I, as a board member, operate more efficiently? That process, the workflows, everything that comes from having this very robust automation platform that you guys have built. Ultimately, it's about removing friction, removing redundant processes, making it more efficient. I go back to the, you know, and you guys know this, and we've sold to banks for years, and I can either, you know, improve profitability, cut cost, or make it more efficient. And this just speaks volumes when we talk about OnBoard and the platform and what our bankers say. It's all about, boy, you just make life easier for me by automating these processes.
Yeah, and I think when we first chatted as we were getting ready to prepare for this webinar, I think I shared a story with you. Somebody said, "Oh, I was able to save literally 8 to 10 hours on my meeting minutes process using this new AI workflow." And that person had been with the bank 20, 30 years, and they have some of the best institutional knowledge, the best tribal knowledge in their institution. Do you want them stuck on a manual workflow for 8 to 10 hours?
And see, there's the punchline. You have bankers, our bankers out there, y'all have some incredibly valuable employees with amazing knowledge and skills. Free them up to take advantage of that and get all of this redundant, labor intense stuff off of their plate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how do we make our employees more valuable? We free them up to do the valuable things.
All right. Tim, back to you. You know, you've got a product roadmap, probably a couple of years in the future. What do you see as board governance? What does that look like with like technology enabled, AI enabled? What does that look like 2 or 3 years from now versus today?
Yeah, so if we connect the dots, we're trying to use the data and the platform to help make better decisions. So we'll just use a workflow. So if we have recording of a meeting, we have the full transcript, we know what was said, we know what needs to happen. We can help automate the process around assigning tasks, around making sure that people know what they said, what they committed to, and ultimately creating just a streamlined approach to helping make better decisions. So that's a piece of it. We have our vision is across the whole platform. And so it's not just bolting on AI for AI's sake, but improving workflows and making it a better experience using some of the AI tech that we have access to. So helping people prepare for meetings, so creating content, also preparing and summarizing content, and then helping the meetings run smoother, and also the automation around follow-ups at the end of the day. We're also looking at how we can create agentic workflows. So not just static, you log in and take manual steps to do a specific task, but if you're familiar with using ChatGPT or natural language processing to, hey, I want to do this, or I want to find this information, we want to build that into the workflow so that it's a seamless experience. So that directionally is what is part of our vision. And there's a lot that we're doing behind the scenes to connect the dots so that everything is secure, so that everything is, you know, bank grade security. We're not training any models. We're not going outside of the OnBoard app or outside of a specific organization. So we're really excited about that bigger vision of how we can connect meeting to meeting, have context for what was said, not just for one meeting, but across multiple quarters or multiple years, and give people context for, hey, this was also referenced in Q2 of last year, and you might want to talk about this, or here are the questions to ask. Got the memory, it's got the context to help create more efficiency and just overall better meetings and better outcomes.
Yeah, it's great. And then all in service of kind of this ideal vision of good governance that we're displaying on the screen here now. Tim, if you're ready, we can give a sneak preview.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So this is our exclusive onboard AI preview for our ICBA friends. Yeah, I'll just let you take it from here, Tim.
Yeah, so we know that there's a really big opportunity to incorporate what we can do with AI across our platform. One of the things that we're doing specifically, and this is a little bit outside of the AI vision, is as part of our roadmap, we're looking at a compliance calendar that would connect to our agenda AI workflow. So, you know, that there's meetings that need to happen or topics that need to be covered throughout the year, and our agenda AI platform, or part of our product, allows for agendas to be created based on previous meetings or unstructured email content. And then the compliance calendar would also bring in relevant topics that need to be covered. So that's part of the broader vision. Josh, do you have the platform slide?
Yeah, and this was just a quick touchdown back to what Charles and I were talking about. This customer had gone from email and PDF to AI-enabled minutes, and just the great leap forward there. But yeah, here's the sweet slide too.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is the current view of our AI suite, and it goes across all of the personas that we're targeting, but primarily as we think about prepping for a meeting, agenda AI is for admins and taking any content, upload a document or copy paste or even prompt. You could prompt and say, I want to create an agenda for a credit union in a specific location, and it's going to give you an outline of what that meeting could look like. It's a starting point, and you can iterate on it and then approve and launch the meeting to your board. And then book is really around director prep. So we talked a little bit about this, but this is taking all of that content that directors need to prepare for and summarize, and creating a really clean summary. So director logs in, they see the book, and then they by agenda item, they can see a summary. This will also connect to other documents that were shared in previous meetings, or other things that were said in previous meetings. So this is a really unique opportunity to help conversations be very targeted and very effective. It's really going to enhance the director experience. Actions is how we want to connect the dots to what was said, what was committed to, and also things that need to be done, like signatures, based on what was communicated in a meeting. So think about this as an automated way to keep track of tasks and specific actions that are assigned to directors or to admins or even contributors that were a part of the meeting that were presenting. Minutes, we've launched Minutes. This has been in the market for over 6 months. And this is recording a meeting, both audio and video, takes a transcript, and then we have an outline of the meeting associated to your 2 agenda items. And then we have a 1 button click to generate minutes. So it's a summary of minutes, a summary of the what was said by each agenda item, and it's a starting point that you can also iterate on that. It's within an editor and then publish minutes. So this is has been a really powerful experience. Josh mentioned that people are saving lots of time. This is a manual task that we're automating, and it's a really great and simple experience. Assist is our embedded chatbot that's a part of the platform. And this is where a lot will start to happen around some of the agentic workflows. So instead of just saying, give me a summary on this document, you can start interacting and saying, I want this specific task to be done, or tell me what was committed, or what tasks were part of the last meeting, or what did I say in a previous meeting, things like that. It can start to surface unique information, not just basic summarization. And then insights, this is another level of analytics on what was said within a meeting. So I've used an analogy around this is like Gong for boards. So if you've used Gong, you know that there's reporting on what was said in a call, and there's all kinds of analytics and who said what and a timeline of what was said. So this is in combination to what Minutes is doing, but more about reporting on what was done in a meeting. So this is the core of the suite, and we're super excited about where it's headed. Many of these things are already in market and part of the platform, and a lot of our focus is on expanding this. So this is really just the beginning.
Yeah. And then, Ted, you mentioned before we were explaining this, the importance of that, a lot of these capabilities may be out in the market in a different tool, in a ChatGPT or something like that. But can you talk about the importance of like the security wall and the compliance factor here? Yeah, that these features are available within that discrete setting.
Yeah. So this is any data that is uploaded to OnBoard is never used to train any third-party model. It's not 100% secure. So what Josh was mentioning earlier around public links or anything getting outside of the OnBoard forward walls, that would not happen. This is a unique opportunity for memory to be created based on what documents are uploaded and what's happening in meetings. And that's, let's say, even if you did upload a document to ChatGPT, it's not going to have the same level of context or memory around that document. And that's the unique aspect with our vision around onboard AI, is that it is within the secure 4 walls, but it has context for so much more than just that one document, because of what was said in meetings and what we have and the other documents and other context. So that, Josh, that goes a bit beyond security, but that's part of
that's one of my favorite kind of things about this feature too, is that it is like pulling into that institutional memory. I've always pitched it as kind of like, what if you had a perfect board member who could remember every detail of every meeting, from here to eternity. Back to the compliance factor, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but it's kind of the right moment in the show. Joe asks, what are your recommendations about board recordings of meetings and then relying on AI generated summaries, concerns about liability of the recording and accuracy of the meeting being reviewed by regulators and auditors? I think you touched on it a little bit, but can you talk a little bit about how the archiving feature works there, and then what the retention settings are for recordings?
Yeah, so recordings can be, we have the ability to configure when they are deleted, or they can be deleted immediately after the transcript or the minutes are generated. The question around the content within the minutes, when we generate the first version of the minutes associated to the agenda items, it's really a first version. So we aren't forcing that to be the final version. In the product, it's in a text editor. So we generate, and then it can be changed, updated. You can save a draft, you come back to it. So we're not forcing anything to happen. There aren't workflows that automatically happen after a meeting. It's fully, you have full control while we're enabling some of these like recording and automated generation of minutes. We're not forcing that to be pushed to anyone until it's ready and approved.
Yeah, fully approved by the committee or the board responsible. So I like that. Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of a moment of transition here. I did forget to put this on the upfront, so my apologies, audience. We do have one small ask. It's a very quick poll. As we move into the QA with audience questions here, if you just have a couple thoughts that you'd like to share with us, I'm sure you could write this out in 5 to 10 seconds. But Charles, we've talked a little bit about, obviously, security and compliance are just table stakes for banks, and then especially for community banks. Do you see AI innovation in other spaces beyond board governance? Is it following the same kind of rigor in other spaces? Whether, I don't know if that's automation of emails to customers, or is that security and compliance feature the first hurdle that most banks are facing?
Absolutely. So when I talk about education, I mean, it really starts with that framework of security, compliance. PII enters the conversation almost immediately from everybody's perspective. So to your credit, having a proprietary ring-fenced solution, building a moat around your bank's information is a critical element to that, no matter what tools I'm using and how I'm using them.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the fast evolution, rightfully so, just like we would talk about how a bank would start their journey on exploring better board governance, is start small. It's the crawl, walk, run. Let me find some back office function, that's generally the low-hanging fruit, that I can automate using these tools and these technologies, and start gaining some efficiencies in my operation, and iteratively start learning best practices and better practices on how to land and expand, if you will, across the association. And almost it would be a far stretch for me to find a representative bank whose first exploratory AI approach was anything customer facing. I would be dumbfounded if somebody put up their hand and said our first AI experiment was customer facing, right? I mean, there's so much you can do inside the bank, and again, board, what you do is a representative of that. How do I take lots of complicated information, apply a lot of intelligent analytics to it, and make more efficient my practices that have some kind of specified governance around them, whether that is return item analysis in my ACH function, whether that is post-closing audits and examinations of loan files. All of those things are areas where these kinds of tools can be applied. And that's that operational nature is where we tend to see most of the advances taking place in community banks right now.
Yeah. And then I guess the other question I have, Charles, is obviously significant interest in these tools. And you maybe there's a significant cohort of the board members that are like, yeah, we want to move this forward. And technology wise, you mentioned that education was such a big part of that. How do you introduce that, like that technology adoption, or, hey, this is a process we want to change? Do you bring in an expert? Do you have just a group?
Well, you start with the ICBA and OnBoard, because we have subject matter experts, and so inside of ICBA education, we have a robust set of board governance practices and subject matter experts that support that. Obviously, you supply and support that as well. So I think starting with the natural relationships our ICBA members have, this is where you go. And then to your point, let's take kind of the tools out of it. Is the bank looking to evolve its own strategy? Does that mean it needs to revisit its governance practices? Yes. And then there's partners that y'all work with who also support our educational arm, who can help the banks on that journey.
Yeah. And then Tim, I guess for you,
look, but Josh, let me just, again, I think this is like so many other things that are evolving fast for banks. This is an iterative process. It's a learning, rinse and repeat iterative process. Start small, make these iterations, learn, improve, and not try to eat the proverbial elephant all in one bite.
Yeah. And then I think just one thing as an organization we've done that I thought was really helpful is we started having an AI office hours where we invite people. How are you using AI in your workplace? What are some questions do you other people have? Because everybody's kind of adopting at a different rate within individual contributor roles within an organization. Tim,
so along that line, so there is a bank, and they've done this multiple times. They take so when AI exploded a couple of years ago, they went and formed a small little subset task force at the board level to go start evaluating it. Start there, start small, go evaluate it. Now they're doing it with stablecoin, but it is something that a bank should do, is build some muscle memory and some knowledge themselves.
Yeah. And then Tim, I guess just to take this out to just a 10,000 foot view, and aside from community banks, what are some of the novel adoptions you're seeing of AI in other verticals that are board led? Are you seeing any differences among these verticals, or is it governance is governance is governance?
The question is from an AI perspective specifically?
Yeah, just AI adoption in the boardroom. Is there something that's distinct about community banks, or are there distinct changes in other verticals that we're seeing that we serve?
I think at this point there's a lot of consistency. I think in our build of the initial AI vision, we were really focused on a few key pieces that are generally the same across many verticals. Like, we have to create a relevant agenda. We want to summarize a board book for directors. We know that minutes is a very horizontal feature that everybody needs. Everybody needs to improve that process. So that's where we started. And that's kind of the first phase of the AI vision. We know that there are going to be areas where we can go deeper from a vertical perspective. I mentioned some of that around agenda and the compliance calendar and that connection. But at this point is really, how are we going to, from our perspective, how are we going to serve the whole base? And then we'll go to a bit more vertical approach in the future.
Yeah. I guess the reason for that question is kind of the Fortune 5 million argument that we work. And I think community banks are one of the best examples of that. When your average layperson thinks of a board of directors, they're thinking of like Chevy and Ford and Coca-Cola, but there's literally millions of organizations across the United States, like community banks that are board led, that could adopt these technologies, get faster, get smarter, more automated. So yeah, that was the reason between the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Charles, I mean, I think we touched a little bit about this, but like, what are the first 3 steps that you would recommend to any bank looking for AI innovation in their technology stack?
Start with a well-established educational knowledge sharing approach. This has got to be something that's embraced strategically across the organization from the top down. The board's got to be involved in it. And so that has to have a good solid foundation of education and knowledge that is shared across the organization. The second, as we've alluded to, is find some small, low friction functions where you can, I hate to use the word experiment, but it is where you can learn, where you can iterate, and you can effectively measure the tangible results based upon what you strategically were pursuing. And then third is embrace continuous improvement. This culture of innovation isn't just about technology. It's about constantly improving, sharpening the sword. And so AI as at the board level can become a very strong indicator for the rest of the organization on how that organization wants to behave and move through time and take advantage of the dynamics in the marketplace right now. So I think this culture evolution comes hand in glove with it and can be extremely powerful across the financial institution.
Yeah. And would you see it? I mean, you talk about this in the larger sense, but I'm thinking more of the competitive sense. Is there's a finite amount of customers, especially in a specific community or specific geo or region. Do you see, AI and innovation in general just as a competitive advantage?
Absolutely. And look, there's a bigger issue for our community banks, and that's a talent shortage. If I want to grow my bank, I want to take advantage of my bank. Part of what I need to be thinking about is talent acquisition. Where the next loan officer is going to come from? Where the next customer service rep is going to come from? Well, this technology, this AI, these AI tools allow me to extend the runway of my existing resources as I'm looking to acquire new talent, and talent acquisition and retention and succession goes hand in glove with the evolution of these tools in a bank that is looking at a dynamic, strategic growth opportunity.
That's great. Cool. With that said, I don't see too many more other questions coming in from the audience. Oh, here's one from Valerie. Thank you for submitting a question. Valerie says, regarding policy reviews that boards conduct on an annual basis, are we able to condense, summarize policies and or assist in some way? Tim?
At this point, that's something that we're looking at as part of a future part of the vision. But right now, documents, I think what you're getting at, we don't solve for immediately, but part of the broader vision is to allow for any documents that are uploaded into OnBoard to be able to summarize and potentially iterate on. But maybe if I had more context, we could give you a more specific answer.
Yeah, I think more around the idea of condensing, summarizing, key bullet points, executive summaries around policy documents that may be relevant.
Yeah. So if a document is in part of a board, if it's part of a book, part of a board book, then you could summarize it. That would be part of our book AI approach. Our assistant also does a really good job of summarizing content. So I think it really depends on what workflow you're after. There's a few options.
Yeah. But in the case of a multi-100-page policy document, if you're looking for a specific question or a specific line of analysis, you can certainly use the Assist AI feature to bring that up out of the needle out of the haystack, so to speak.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, I won't stand on ceremony here. I will put up our last slide. Again, thank you, Valerie, for that question. If anybody else has a question as I'm sharing our last slide here, I certainly welcome you to shoot that. This is just a quick promo slide. If you want to learn more, there's a QR code here. Obviously, you can always reach out to us at onboardmeetings.com or more at onboardmeetings.com via email. Beyond that, Charles, thank you so much for sharing your time. I know your time is limited with your travel schedule, and Tim, thank you for joining us as well.
Hey, Josh, just there was a last minute.
There is one, from Teresa
in the chat there.
Yeah, can you speak more about the book AI component, what it summarizes, and does it summarize different sections or summarize sections separately, or is the summarization one document on the whole board packet?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is a summary by agenda item. So as you're going through the board book, through the deck, and each of those documents are associated to an agenda item, we're summarizing that agenda section. So it's per section. So if there are any number of agenda items, and within those you could have any number of documents, Book AI will summarize all of the content in those documents for that agenda section. And so the director can go through each agenda section and view the summary and consume that. So
yeah, as we know, director prep is one of the most, as you mentioned, the cognitive overload of director prep. That's what we're trying to make a little bit easier. Cool. Great. Well, Tim, Charles, thank you so much. Audience members, I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you enjoyed the wine. If not now, maybe later once the workday is over. But thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate your attendance. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you guys for the partnership.
Thanks.